Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dr. Jane Ruby Show on this Monday, October 6th, 2025. You're in for a big treat. This is part 2 of my incredible discussion with Lieutenant Colonel retired Ivan Raiklin, former Green Beret, attorney at law, and the self-proclaimed Secretary of Retribution. It's a brilliant discussion. His ideas are incredible, and he's an amazing American patriot. So this is your opening to the show, part 2 of my interview with Ivan Raiklin.
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech. We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech.
Like up until that point when she made that statement, she moved into the coward status along with Cash and Dan because they're doing nothing to effectuate accountability. Mm-hmm. But once you start to restrict First Amendment, even to my enemies, guess what? You are a much greater threat to me. And so she's teetering on, she got real close to me nominating her to my deep state target list until she walked it back. I mean, that's where I stand. Because I could care less if you're Republican, you're Democrat. We got a base document called the Constitution. That is our contract with our government. And when it impacts me personally, guess what? Let's go. I'm happy to guarantee mutually assured destruction. Because let's face it, they're in a position of power.
Right.
I have small influence through my reach and my voice, but that's where my influence is. Once you stop allowing me and others to speak, because at the end of the day, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And somebody else that I totally disagree with could convince me to the contrary. I don't need the government to block that communication from taking place. If I don't want to listen to someone, guess what? I get to mute and block them on my own cognition. And they can do the same thing to me. I don't need some third party dictating what information I consume.
Look, I'm not even a lawyer. She's a lawyer, long history, a lot of political legal work, and now the Attorney General of the United States. How did she not know she was overstepping the Constitution by, we will hunt you down?
Yeah, it works both ways, Miss Bondi. You want to use that speech? I'm going to use the same speech. You better stay within the authorities that we granted you. Because if you don't, expect to be removed. And sometimes that requires unconventional removal, legally, morally, and ethically to the maximum. And I never issue threats. I only guarantee consequences.
How do we do it? How do we remove somebody in that position who's threatening American people to take away their First Amendment right?
Well, I can't disclose all my techniques, tactics, techniques, and procedures. Sometimes you have to, sometimes you don't do a frontal assault, if you know what I mean.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So let's
just say we're working on it.
Yeah. You're back to watching her.
And again, I could care less if it's Scam Blondie or a Pam Blondie or a Pam Bondi. Well, she can remain in that position as long as accountability is being met. Then I can, right now she's got a 0 in the middle of the second semester grades. First semester, she got a 0. Second semester, we're halfway through. She's still at a 0. Now, I would like for her to be successful. I'd be happy for her, Pam, and for Dan and Cash to be successful. So far, I don't see any indication of them having a desire to increase their grades to a D-.
Yeah.
But I'm here for it. I'd be happy to help.
They both were pretty vocal about a lot of the things that you're passionate about. Now they're in, and the public is just deflated.
And they were devoured by the deep state because they didn't do what I recommended. Immediately surround yourself with those like-minded, constitutionally based,
good point,
oath keepers, if you will, those that take their oath to the Constitution seriously, and start to repel internally the quote-unquote deep state.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
8
They
months
got
in, they haven't done anything.
swallowed in.
But guess who has? Guess who's fired a lot of people and suspended clearances? Ms. Gabbard.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what her director's initiative group has been doing? All those releases is because they cleansed the top tier, brought in some of these folks that proved up over the last several years, and you're seeing them going to town. Now, she doesn't have the ability as the AG to criminalize folks, but the maximum authority that the DNI has is clean house, suspend clearances, investigating, declassify. She's done all of the above.
True. Within her lane, yeah, she has done the most of any of these appointees. Yeah. Yeah, good point. And somehow she has survived maybe some of the heavy influence of Susie Wiles. And I know you said you're a little lot more optimistic
Well,
because
it's who she surrounded herself with.
she did.
well.
So she followed what you described as the best way to start. But
Not quite, but I think that's what is happening. I mean, let's take a look at some of the folks up there. Joe Kent as the National Counterterrorism Center director.
right.
I mean, you see very competent
Vet.
people
Yeah.
that pushed back maximally.
Yeah. She's got some heavy hitters that surround her in that spirit of what you suggested. And I don't want to I'm not here to get into a Susie Wiles bashing contest, although I don't like any one person having that much power over the president. But I think it's important for people to know she's the most senior appointed person in the White House. Her dad was Pat Summerall. I didn't even know that, right?
My take is I want to scrutinize everybody.
Okay.
Let's just,
all right. And
okay.
so
We
vetting.
talked about DOD. We talked about the intel community.
Yeah.
And I said, generally speaking, the cabinet is doing mostly a passing grade, right?
In your opinion, yeah, I appreciate
right?
that.
At the highest levels. But the DOJ, I just laid out, like, abysmal failure, right?
Right.
And now let's turn our direction to the White House. If
Okay.
you can pull up that document that I sent you.
Sure.
Every year, the White House is required to send, I believe, on July 1st of every year over to Congress, the staffing of the White House. So as a analyst, I like to take a look and see, who's in the White House? Okay, there's 404 people.
404.
Interesting. And then I take a look at who are in senior positions at the White House. Oh, wow, those that probably make the most in terms of salary. We can start off with that, and we can use a spreadsheet to put at the top who's making the most money are probably going to be the ones in the most senior positions, right? Makes sense. Most people would agree. And so then we go down the list. Who has what in their portfolio? And so when our good friend Laura Loomer complains about there's a vetting crisis in the White House, I like to go into 8K level fidelity, meaning who are the individuals that Miss Loomer is probably referring to? Okay, so we take a look. Who does the staffing at the White House? You know, who would that be? It would be the president's personnel office, right?
Right. But
And so then you have to take a look at which individual runs that. And then you have a name associated with that. Then you go with, okay, there's a deputy chief of staff that the title is deputy chief of staff for, I believe, human resources, right? Or personnel and communications. Okay, personnel, interesting. So that deputy chief of staff probably has a role in deciding who is appointed, right? Does that make sense so far?
yeah,
It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of doing the work of like looking into
right.
this.
Organizationally. Great.
And so that's two. And then if you're trying to get somebody cleared with the clearance and there's some issues, maybe legalities, right? Then who would be involved in doing the vetting from the legal side of things? It would be the White House counsel, right?
Right.
And so what's the name of that individual? Okay, I already mentioned his name.
Yeah.
And then it goes into, okay, you want to balance out the political risk associated with an appointee, right? Makes sense. So then you go with the deputy chief of staff for political affairs. That's another one. And then you go with something like, well, there's a lot of administrative actions and there's paperwork involved in that the head of personnel does, but also there's what's a position called basically presidential secretary. And there's a name associated with that. And it's all listed on this document.
Okay.
Right. And so those 5 individuals, and then ultimately the chief of staff decides who should work in the White House, who should have access to the White House, how communication flows, which communication flows and does not flow, who is excluded, who is not excluded, who is accepted, who is facilitated. A white list, a gray list, a black list. Okay?
Not so obvious, but yeah.
So which position do you think that would be?
That is the chief of staff.
Probably the chief of staff, right?
Sure, Susie
Based
Wiles.
on their knowledge. So then when you list those 5, 6 names, maybe 7, you have the entire panoply of who is involved in deciding, right? Who gets appointed and who doesn't. But then you look further from that, who influences those individuals into making the decisions that they make. And that's where I do the analysis myself through the broader network. Who do they listen to? Which information do they consume? Which information outlets are their go-tos? So then of those 5, 6, who has influence and reach back with the patriot, independent community? Who has reached back to the biggest podcasters, right? Or consumes them? Who doesn't and focuses their attention on faux news? And therein you start to see and identify where you can create good assessments on where those vetting issues are taking place and where their loyalties are.
I see.
And it becomes very evident. So if this current regime wants to effectively communicate something, what's the go-to platform? Faux news, right? For Paul Ryan, so that outfit can make money hand over fist.
Yeah.
For the self-licking ice cream cone to continue to lick itself, right?
Right.
And you want to name the names?
Sure.
So who is probably authorizing members of the White House to do interviews on faux news?
Susie Wiles?
And maybe the deputy chief of staff for communications as well?
Mm-hmm. Comms. Right. With her finger on it, but of course.
I don't know. That's a assessment. I mean,
okay.
I would think that most people would agree with your assessment. But other evidence may prove it to be inaccurate, which we're not privy to, right? Maybe some are. Now, for those of you that are thinking, ooh, that's a lot of control.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're in the cabinet and you want to, let's just say, not play that game, when you start to see content that is directly put out from a X account of a member of the cabinet, that to me indicates that they're trying to put information out within their level of risk that they can take from their cabinet position from being bullied out or censored out. And they put it directly out to the people through their X platform. So when Tulsi Gabbard puts stuff out that she knows that she would not be able to convey on faux news, but needs to put out, and knowing that if it's put out, those that are maybe do not want her to put it out, they can't indicate that they're trying to block her from doing it, because then it immediately exposes them and implicates them. A Tulsi Gabbard can go ahead and put out an X post. Or Pete Hegseth can do the same. Or Bobby Kennedy can do the same thing on some of these higher risk things that we're seeing somewhat wins on over the last couple weeks, right? Wouldn't you agree that some of the stuff he's putting out are not quite where we want to be, but it's still incremental wins that he's trying to manage and get through the system?
This is where we are very different and we operate differently. I'm much more black and white. I don't have...
If he did what you and I wanted, he would no longer be in his position.
Well, then what's the point? Number one.
So he's
and not
trying
only
to work
has he
it with
not...
Mr.
Hold
Ron
on.
Johnson to get
Not only
to that
has he
point.
not done what we want, he's added more of what we don't want. And while you're all dancing around Fruit Loops, the mRNA is embedded.
Exactly, I was going to say the same
embedded
thing.
in the childhood schedule. And watch this, and you can
As
comment
you're
on this.
About red dye number 5.
The AC.
Fruit Loops.
Here's an act of
There's this thing called a DNA mutilation product
that's still alive and well. Ivan, 5 more have been approved since he's been in office. in his position over a $2 trillion department, by the way, HHS. People don't
But
understand.
once you get the president to say that some vaccines are unhealthy, then you
Doesn't
can
matter.
make the next logical step.
Doesn't matter,
of
because you know what?
the recent
It's not about
vaccine.
vaccines anymore. It's about the fact that our own government pushed a bioweapon that has murdered and maimed millions of Americans, millions, and won't talk about it that way. It's an internally developed biological weapon. So you want to know why I want more done faster? Because the poison and the bioweapon is still being injected every single day. Now, if an adult wants to walk into a big box drugstore and say, hey, I want my 18th booster, knock yourself out. We're in America. But a baby can't talk for, 12, 16, 18 years and really make an informed choice. And we're destroying human beings. But anyway, it's not the Ivan Raiklin show interviewing Jane Ruby. So I'm going to stop there. But
No, this is a conversation. And
yeah,
don't get me wrong, Jane, I agree with you.
Bobby's a sellout. Sorry, he's a sellout. He flipped 180 degrees once he hit that confirmation hearing. Everything he said in that confirmation hearing was 180 degrees from what his opus of work. And
Have you seen the friction going back and forth on who his staff is?
I don't know if that's
It
theater
begs
or
the
not.
question.
I don't know. I'm so cynical at this point, Ivan.
So I know for a fact that there's some individuals that he wanted in there that would do exactly what you are advocating for, but elements within the 404 that I mentioned in the White House
Yeah.
do not want that to take place. And it's
404.
unclear on why.
404. Well, did those 404 force him to appoint, Robert Malone to the ACIP with his multi-patents on, the self-proclaimed inventor of the poison, and then with his,
I know you have a great relationship
it's
with
not just
Mr.
that.
Malone.
Even Retsev Levi, the whole gang of the new fresh group still has profound conflicts of interest with industry, with patents, with money holdings. It's
All
just
right, what's your recommendation today? What should happen today?
well, okay. It's really simple. If you think something is dangerous, you stop it while you're investigating it. We're doing the opposite. This is how we know it's bullshit. This is how I know they're lying to us. You don't say, "Hey, that thing is killing babies. Let me take another 2 or 3 years and we're going to do an investigation," but allow that poison to continue on. You halt it and you go back to what you knew before, or treating it. And we could get into all of that, but we know it's a 99% recovery rate, probably almost 100% for babies. So, whatever flu. Okay. So why would you why would you not halt the mRNA? And to further my point, the ACIP cowards just tabled the Hep B 2 hours after birth shot till their next meeting, which is the spring. So that means probably hundreds of thousands of babies will be jabbed with and without their parents knowing it in the first hour or two after they're taken from their mother's vagina and taken in to be cleaned up in the next room. They're jabbed with the HB1 of 3 series shots. They postponed that discussion instead of saying, let's halt it and let's investigate rapidly, and we'll come back at the next meeting and we'll tell you whether we recommend resuming it. That's what I'd like to see.
So how do we motivate them? I mean,
You
therein
don't.
lies the
They're
problem,
corrupted.
right?
They're junk.
So I don't give up. So then we have to figure out ways to continue move the ball down the field, because there's a solution to all this. And a lot of people are like, well, it's so corrupted. What do we do? There are many solutions. If you want the today solution, it's beyond unconventional. And if you look at the course of human history, there have been ways where within an hour, a couple hours, things can go like this, right? But it becomes challenging to defend it from a legal, moral, and ethical aspect, right? Morally and ethically, maybe you could justify it. Legally, it becomes tenuous, specifically if you fail at solving it in that instance, if you know what I mean. So that's where we're at.
Well, the what enables them to commit this, and I see it as a crime. I see the entire childhood schedule as
It is. I mean, the face
it's
toilets, I consider a felony.
right.
The school board members that voted to put a face toilet on a child, that's one felony per instance of a child in that school district that had to put a face toilet on. That's a felony.
You're an attorney.
Child asphyxiation.
Right. You're an attorney.
Child neglect. Child endangerment.
You're an attorney. These companies are not poor companies. They've made billions and billions and billions of dollars. Why are they still protected with a liability shield? Why isn't anybody in Congress reversing the Reagan, the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine
Because
Injury
these
Act?
companies fund those campaigns.
Of course. And I know the answer.
You know the answer.
So if we don't, how many years do they get to do this for free and not give a shit about what they put in it, how they developed it, and what, who they're...
So
remember,
therein lies the problem. You have name one individual in this administration that did not take the jab at cabinet level or above.
I don't know if there's a way to really know that or if anybody would admit it, but I'm assuming they were exempted. Much of them were exempted. What's the point of the question?
Current administration, it's like we have a pause. So we went from a tyrannical regime to a coward regime, and we need to improve off of that. Okay. So the weaponization has slowed down. It gives us an opportunity to take a breath and then gather our thoughts, refit, recover, so that in the next administration, we can go scorched earth. That's the way I look at it.
Well, if you're thinking that in the next administration, if it's going to be J.D. Vance, don't discount the...
J.D. Vance is a devout jab recipient.
I was going to say, but he also owns mRNA manufacturing plants. How are we going to get a pause with him?
I said, if you are a jab recipient, that automatically disqualifies you from leadership positions from Ivan Raiklin's perspective.
If only Ivan Raiklin was running this show, I'd be really a lot happier.
You could be the dumbest person, most unqualified in all other regards. If you withstood the PSYOP known as the jab, you automatically get the trillion-point preference for any position in a government. Just like, how they give for federal civilian employees, if you're a Purple Heart recipient, you get a 5-point or 10-point preference, veteran 5-point preference.
I like it.
Well, if you're unjabbed, you get a trillion-point preference.
Ivan, okay? I like it. I mean, I'm with you all the way. You need the power to implement these incredible ideas. You always have these great ideas.
They're not going to give it. We take it.
You had a great idea with the lockdown thing and the masks a few years ago. You said, I got a solution. Instead of arguing with that store owner and everybody saying, screw you, you say, hey, whoa. I'm going to make you a promise. If you don't demand the mask, we promise only to shop here. I thought to myself, my Ivan is so brilliant.
Well, the other thing that I did, I had a document printed out that said that I'll wear your mask once you sign this document that says you will be held liable for anything that happens to me physically, medically, for wearing the mask, because it's going to.
I like that one too. Yeah.
So if anything happens to me, you're going to be on the hook for it. And then they're like, I can't sign that. I'm like, well, cool. Then I can't put your face toilet on.
But I liked your mutual working together, because that's why they were implementing it and following their directives.
Just like the face toilets on the planes.
Yeah.
I would have. You see the pictures of my lollipop? Those massive carnival lollipops?
Yeah.
It would take like 6 hours to basically lick it to zero. So I would always have. I would have one of those on every flight that I took. And then when the enforcers came out, I was like, hey, you have to wear your face toilet. And I said, well, I'm in the middle of eating. I'll put it on as soon as I'm done eating
right. Yeah.
my lollipop. This is my lunch right now or whatever. And then they would come back and say, like, well, you're not eating. I'm like, well, I'm in between licks. So
I love that.
I would lick it.
Oh my God, I love that.
At different events, I would have and hand out the smaller lollipops. And people were like, oh, great. So all you had to do was hold your lollipop in your hand. And when somebody came to quote unquote enforce, you just say, I need to increase my blood sugar.
I was accused by one.
I did that at CPAC, Florida.
Listen, I was accused by one flight attendant in flight of slow walking my lunch.
Transgression, slow walking lunch.
Yeah. Insert middle finger when she walked away.
How fast do I need to eat? 100 miles an hour? I don't want to, that's what's the speed limit here?
There's a great video clip of this guy. He's doing exactly that. And he's got, and eventually she comes by his seat again, and he's got a chef doing, hibachi, and he's like, hibachi.
No, but you could tell some of those the flight attendants would look over to me, and they had the look of, you're a brilliant asshole.
They loved this power. They loved the power thing. A lot of them were left-wing woke idiots who took 18 shots and wore 3 masks, but that's another thing. I know we're coming up in a little bit on your time limit.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you what else you wanted to share. What else is on your mind right now? I don't want you to wait, so long to come back.
Yeah, the last time we had spoken, there was a couple things that we talked about that I want to readdress.
Okay.
That, there's some haters out there that think this and that about me, but at the end of the day, I have evidence to support that the investigation on me, because I'm probably the only person on the inside of the system at the time during that initial part of the Biden criminal syndicate that knows the history behind it. And essentially, they had to investigate me because I was so powerfully exercising my First Amendment to expose them. They needed to walk it back because I was at the cusp of forcing the blockage of the steal, if you will, through a couple of different theories, the Pence card theory, and then the other legal theory that wasn't publicized publicly, but Nancy Pelosi caught wind of it to then instigate that Fedsurrection. And I'm talking about me communicating with Kevin McCarthy and then Mike Pence's chief of staff on doing a parliamentary maneuver in the Capitol peacefully through a voting procedure under the 12th Amendment that I almost took place had it not been for the Fedsurrection. Well, from there, I just kept escalating, showing and that it was an illegal election. And so the DHS started to investigate me as late as June of 2021. By the way, I have evidence to support all this. And then in August, they took me off of what's known as the Trusted Traveler Program, and they started investigating me and put me on the Quad S program, the Quiet Skies program, where you're essentially being subjected to a Fourth Amendment gang rape every time you travel. Meanwhile, I had TSA PreCheck. I had clear. Since the inception of those two programs, I was a reserve lieutenant colonel with a clearance. So I was the least risky traveler category, right, in the biz. But nonetheless, for political reasons, they wanted to weaponize against me to try to find something, right? The whole adage, you find me the man, I find you the crime. So I can document that I was investigated by DHS Maine, their intelligence shop was looking into me. The Customs and Border Patrol, HSI, it falls under CBP, Homeland Security Investigations. The Federal Air Marshals, 3 of them would escort me and surveil me from home to destination on every flight that I was on, both from my house to the airport and then from the inside of the airport. TSA would conduct the Fourth Amendment gang rape. And then once I passed through checkpoint, I would then be surveilled further by the Federal Air Marshals. And then that occurred for almost nearly 2 years. Okay. I was also investigated by the Department of Justice, Jack Smith, for the tweet that President Trump retweeted. I was investigated by the J6 committee. I was investigated by the Department of Justice through, like I said, Jack Smith. The FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force was investigating me for any potential role in January 6th, in addition to the Jack Smith election case against Donald Trump. I was investigated by FBI National Security Branch, DOJ National Security Division. So where are we at? We're about a dozen so far, right?
Right.
I was in, and then that's on the DOJ side of things, as well as the DHS side of things. And then on the Department of Defense side of things, because I was a contractor at the Defense Intelligence Agency and a reservist, I was investigated for any role in January 6th. I was investigated probably for pushing back against the COVID injections. And so I was investigated by the 2 contract companies that I was working with. the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Department of Defense at the Office of Secretary of Defense, my reserve unit twice, the 2 contract companies, like I said, and ultimately the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, with no evidence, decided to block me from performing on my contracts, teaching critical thinking. And I was not able to continue to support that agency. And they also blocked me from gaining access to military bases as a lieutenant colonel in the reserves. So not only did I, lose hundreds of thousands, million, probably a couple million in contracts over the last 4 years, which, whatever, that's fine. I still have my freedom. But I also was not able to access my health care that I had earned through 25 years of service.
Oh, boy.
Family didn't have health care through the military system that I relied on, and now with no money, right? So we had to stop kind of doing any medical stuff. Couldn't get access to base, no commissary, no PX, none of the benefits that I had earned for my time in service, nor could I perform any of my military service, nor could I perform on any contracts in the field that I was professionally good at to perform in, whether it's at Fort Belvoir, on Bolling Air Force Base. And it wasn't until basically 3 years later that I started to get some of my accesses back when they took me off the Quiet Skies program. And that only occurred after I had a conversation, because when the Republicans took over the House and the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee and the Appropriations Committee subcommittee on that portfolio that covers Homeland Security and TSA, the TSA administrator came and testified, and I went up to him and said, "Hey, sir, I'm a political target, just as well as anybody else. I'm on the Quiet Skies program. We can solve this in 2 ways. One, I'm going to work with the chairman of the committee to make your life as miserable as possible as the administrator, or you can just simply remove me off of your political target list so I can travel freely, and then you no longer are at my top priority level on my deep state target list, which results in further scrutiny and analysis and research and investigation of you, your family, your neighbors, your friends, your associates, until I find something. So the option's yours, sir." And he opted to give me his contact information through his staff. And he recommended, "Why don't you go ahead and reapply for TSA pre-check, wink, and see how that goes."
Yeah.
And 20 minutes later, I was reinstated and everything was fine and dandy. So that's how.
Hi, everyone. I just read a report that Americans are outliving their retirement savings, leaving them in a doomed position. That's because their retirement has been set up the same as before, using the old default strategies that haven't changed since the 1970s. Well, this is great for financial advisors and retirement companies, but often leaves your life savings positioned poorly. Companies like BlackRock and Vanguard keep getting bigger, while your retirement struggles to keep pace with rising expenses. But it doesn't have to be that way. My great friends at Augusta Precious Metals have put together an important report tailored to my audience. Many of you have over $100,000 in your IRA, 401k, or TSP, which means you need to get your hands on this concise but powerful 2-minute report about how to take full control of your financial future. Go to goldwithjane.com. That's goldwithjane.com, or text Jane, Jane, to 35052 to get instant access to this free report. In it, you'll learn the one step you can take that will open the doors to a modern way to protect and grow your retirement. It uses the same strategies the wealthy use to protect their portfolios. Even companies like BlackRock and Vanguard use these strategies themselves without sharing them with their clients. Well, now you can start taking advantage of them as well. If you have over $100,000 in your retirement accounts, you need to contact my friends at Augusta Precious Metals by visiting goldwithjane.com or text Jane to 35052. Your future self will thank you.
Dandy. So that's how much of a threat I was, right?
Yeah, it was harassment.
So, needless to say, I was investigated almost about 20 different entities across DOD, DOJ, DHS, and the intel community with nothing to show for. Can you imagine if there was anything in, and by the way, they subpoenaed and looked at my Google Cloud, Apple Cloud, Facebook, Twitter, all of my communications, private, public, everything.
Pay attention, everybody out there.
And they found what? A big fat zero.
Yeah.
So now I have the moral authority and high ground to do exactly the same to every single person that did that to me. What do you think is going to happen to them? You think they're going to be able to survive the same scrutiny that they did to me?
Probably not.
And surveil them for 2 years?
Right. I don't.
You find me the man, I'll find you the crime, unless you're somebody like me. Because every time that they investigated me, I know enough people in the system because I spent 25 years in it. Like, I got people in the DHS, DOJ, FBI, everywhere that I have a decades relationship with that I still trust. Meaning one or two people in these entire organizations that know where my heart is and where I'm at. And so anytime I get, they launch something on me, I would know already who was doing it. And so that means that I have now the will and interest to investigate them. So a lot of people ask, like, why Ivan hasn't been arrested? Why can he talk like the way he talks? Essentially, it's like most people would have been already taken off the map by then. It's because I know who's investigating me, not the deep state, not the FBI, the individual. And so then I investigate them, and every instance I find dirt on them, and then I mention it publicly on a post or not. So they know, because they're already looking at me, they're going to see that post. They know I'm now investigating them, and they're stuck in this position of, do I do the Biden criminal syndicate's bidding and try to take out Ivan Raiklin at the risk of him exposing all of my transgressions? You see how that works? You apply more reverse pressure on the individual that's conducting a unpredicated investigation so that they are forced to operate within the legal framework that they're supposed to.
I see.
Because at the end of the day, it gives them the reason to say, you know what? I'm investigating Ivan. There's nothing to show for. As opposed to saying, I'm going to investigate him and I'm going to manipulate the facts in a way to falsify, to make him look like he's
very different,
and then create a criminal investigation. It forces them to stay within their authority.
I see.
And I wouldn't have any problems with these people if they investigated me without impacting my rights. But once they pass the threshold of denying me access on the military bases, once they pass the threshold of denying me the ability to earn, an income through my professional background, and then even more so once they blocked me from exercising my First Amendment by traveling through the air system, violating my Fourth Amendment, and missing. The reason why I was flying during this period of time, I was meeting with presidents of the Senate and speakers of the House and the state legislatures to convince them that they had a moral, ethical, and legal obligation to reclaim their electors, to delegitimize the illegitimate one resident in the White House and the Naval Observatory. That's all within my First Amendment. But they feared me because in Arizona, when I testified, you opened up with the testimony. We were literally one vote shy in that committee in the Senate from actually convincing them to vote on it. And there was other testimony that took place that ended up derailing it. But that's how close we started to move the domino. Because if Arizona would have done that, Wisconsin would have been next, because the entire country would have demanded it. And that would have then forced the overwhelming we the people pressure for Georgia, because then the whole country would have pivoted and applied so much pressure on Georgia to delegitimize their to remove their illegitimate electors that they transmitted, that would have put Biden under 270 lawfully, which would have forced a contingent election. And if everyone voted by political party, you would have had a Republican majority state legislatures in the House electing Trump at that point.
That was tough to get so.
That would have been the momentum.
Yeah.
So that's why they had to investigate me, because they wanted to stop every instance of doing it. They had to come up with any legal theory, but because thank God I have a legal background, an intelligence background, special operations background, and I have the network of people that know me well enough that, like, I tell the truth, and like, I'm not going to back down. I'll close with this. During the lockdowns, I even said, like, hey, man, I'm not going to comply. I'm not going to submit to the unlawful jab. And I don't care who you send. You want to send somebody through that doorway to force that on me? I guarantee you they will be a carcass. Okay. I will gladly face my jury of my peers. Okay. I look forward to it. And this was somebody within the government. They're like, well, that kind of rhetoric is why people investigate you. Well, guess what? That kind of rhetoric protects our collective First Amendment and
Yes.
Fourth Amendment and against government tyranny.
Yes.
And it's not rhetoric that is threatening. It's literally nothing will happen if you don't conduct an illegal action. I won't conduct consequences for that illegal action. Once you conduct that illegal action, guess what? You want to test whether or not I'm telling you the truth or not? You're going to have, like, the only way to test it is for you to commit the illegal act and see if I'm going to immediately create consequences for you. And so I'm sure the conversation over at the FBI was, I'm not going to go ahead and raid Ivan because I have a family.
Mm-hmm.
You do it.
It's smart. It's smart navigating, and it's defensive, but it's
And it would
offensive.
be communicated
Yeah.
from one of their colleagues that I know and we trust each other.
I don't.
That's how I had to learn from what they did to President Trump, General Flynn, like from those actions to be able to fight the system within pre-indictment.
Yes.
3 years later, they finally dropped the investigation on me because there was a grand jury open. I think it was to Jack Smith and maybe others that I'm not tracking, but there was at least one grand jury where I was a target of their investigation.
I don't think
And I was able to win it.
most people
Pre-indictment.
know the extent of the losses that you suffered, in under these investigations, and the economic loss, which I know you're a soldier. I get all that. You'd be fine. You'd be okay with if you didn't have a family to take care of.
I'm not complaining because let's face it.
You never
There were
complain about
1,600
it.
J6ers.
Yeah.
1,575 January 6ers
Yeah.
that basically lost their freedom,
Their
or
businesses.
criminalized to some
Right,
perspective.
right.
So like what happened to me is nothing compared to them. So like I relate my predicament or plight to them. So I can't complain. I have no
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
I have no authority, moral authority to complain on what they did to me. But I am proud that I was able to defeat them.
Ivan, what would be your maybe best hope for accomplishment in during this Trump second term?
I mean, I think that at a bare minimum, John Brennan, James Comey, the General Counsel of the U.S. Capitol Police, Tad DeBias, Jamie Raskin, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, David Buckley, the staff director of that J6 committee. On the FBI side of the house, James Baker, Joe Pientka III, Brian Auten have to face maximum allowable punishment under the law, and it needs to be live streamed. And before that live streaming occurs, it has to be, I get it, there'll be a legal process, there'll be due process. But the court of public opinion needs to understand that these individuals, what they did, and then tie it to how what they did don't even reference Donald Trump. He is literally a small bit player of what they did to our constitutional republic. They violated our rights and our like physical well-being that resulted into all this mutilation. Some of it self-induced because a lot of people were duped. They were involved in all of it the last 11 years. They were the generals domestically that were involved in this. And when America sees that, you don't even have to reference Orange Man Bad. You show the nexus of them to you being duped into essentially allowing for the slaughter of your friends, family, and neighbors to the jab because of the censorship, I think 100% of the country will demand that they face the maximum punishment for treason. And so, which means the jury, by the time it gets to the jury pool, it's like they're already convicted. Because I mean, I've seen the evidence. You've seen most of the evidence. It's like I can convict. Now, granted, when I say that, I'm the most unbiased and impartial juror that I think you could ever have, because I scrutinize the evidence. And if, for example, my assessments before were inaccurate, I'm going to take in new evidence and make that conclusion. And with that said, I would be honored to be the jury foreman in the trial against James Comey, because he's in the Eastern District of Virginia. I'm a registered voter in the Eastern District of Virginia, and I'd be honored to be on the jury, and specifically the jury foreman. I will mete out justice in the maximal, unbiased, professional manner that this country's ever seen in its 250-year existence. Retribution.
Love it. Unbelievable.
Put them through the same thing they put us through. I was a recipient of it. I can never be a victim, and you can never offend me.
Unbelievable. You do a great service by continually informing the public of these players and how important their role was.
There's only 1,500 people in a country of 350 plus million.
Yeah.
It only takes about 15, not even 1,500. If we just essentially create accountability for about half a dozen, maybe a dozen, there will then be case studies in every single law school and every single institution in our country moving forward that when this action occurs, expect this consequence to happen. Now, it might take 2, 4, 6, 8 years, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years to happen. That's going to force people to hesitate when they're in these positions, that ultimately the truth will come out. And you can't plan for everything. There's people like me in the system that the wild cards. I'm at a point where I could care less what they do to me, as long as I can get the truth out and they face, to me, it's more, my life is less important than them facing consequences, honestly.
Well, we need both.
That's how important it is to me.
We need both. So.
No, it's bonus.
Yeah.
But I would be okay with mutually assured destruction to hold them to account, because guess what? My kids don't have to deal with them anymore.
Right.
And that's a massive victory for me.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
Because then
yeah.
they can be proud of the legacy that they fell on.
Yeah. Beautifully said. And so true.
Well, that's it.
Ivan, you're amazing. You always get us thinking, and
hopefully we can get some courage in this Department of Justice.
Courage,
because they lack it.
That's your legacy word on this.
They don't have it. I'm trying to inspire it, and right now, I failed thus far. So I'm going to have to come up with ways to increase those efforts, and I may have to do it in person.
It's not a failure.
Mr. Patel, Mr. Bongino. So don't be surprised if you see me in person.
Miss
motivating
Bondi.
You. And Miss Bondi.
Yeah. And I'm going to, for me, on the medical side, it's going to be Mr. Kennedy. Because if I could sit in a room with him for an hour, I would get answers to why it's great if he's really working on it in a 6D chess way, but you can't.
Infinite D chess.
You can't say the opposite. Just be quiet. Or say something maybe at 170 or 160, but don't do the 180.
Jane, I'm seeing that we're getting progress.
You are.
They only react to pain and embarrassment. When you can identify the individuals that are supposed to be doing something, and you can educate the people at scale, that's what moves them.
Yeah, I'm hoping. That's what I,
whether it's the executive branch, whether the folks in the White House. Like, I caught a lot of shrapnel when I call names out by name with evidence that makes them not look so good. They start to react. And then I'm like, hey, man, I got no personal beef with you. But I'm seeing indicators that you're not allowing the following to take place. And so if this is painful for you, the easy way to avoid the ice pick is to allow for the truth to come out.
ice pick. I love that.
So I'm the proverbial ice pick.
Yep.
And I plan and identify where the proverbial eyeball is.
Yep.
Because you don't need to apply too much pressure on an eyeball with a very sharp ice pick. And I'm using that as an analogy.
I know.
Again, I always advocate for legal, moral, ethical actions, decisions, and it's always going to be peaceful for me. Remember, it's always going to be peaceful for me.
Yep.
I can't speak on behalf of others.
We've seen you in countless clips, just intellectually taking down members of the press in a very methodical and interesting conversation. We've seen you, one of my all-time favorites, respectfully and gentlemanly welcome Dr. Rochelle Walensky into the hearing room and shake her hand and say, I'm really looking forward to your testimony on how you murdered X number of millions of Americans.
In a very submissive,
just
benign,
lovely,
polite manner.
Lovely, beautifully eloquently executed. I want to be more like him. No, I'm going to be me. But anyway,
No, but obviously internally, it's disgusting what they've put us through.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. We need about 1 million of you Ivans, but I know you got a force behind you, so I'm good with that. Thanks for coming.
As long as we can as long as we got shows like yours that can, at the end of the day, it's like, you don't need 1 million people or 10 million, 100 million people.
Yeah.
If 100, 200 people, think about it. Imagine a moment where 100 people walk into one member's of Congress's office that's a chairman of the relevant committee.
Yeah.
You can't, that's unheard of. That's 100 ice picks. You kind of got to respond to those 100 ice picks if you want to survive politically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm just here to motivate folks to do more than what they've done and just be smarter and more physically fit than those that are representing you or replace them.
That's an important point. We have to maintain our own health and strength.
Have them follow you,
mm-hmm.
right? Because at the end of the day, I'm finding more and more, I'm meeting with these staffers, I'm meeting with members of Congress. In some aspects, in some areas, not to sound in any way, shape, or form negative, it's my duty to carry them to the finish line mm-hmm. because they've already proven themselves incapable. So I have just as much as a vested interest in having a A+ country as they do, and maybe even more because they've evidenced that they don't have that much zeal. And so whether it's a president, a Speaker of the House, a White House, I don't need to be in a position of power. But if they fail to do what we voted for them to do, the mandate that we gave, which is, I ask everybody at these speeches, you were at one of them in Florida. What's the number one thing that people voted for President Trump? It's accountability. Well, what does that look like? That means you kind of have to deal with the treason. You kind of have to deal with the mutilation and the genocide. You kind of have to deal with all aspects of mutiny, seditious conspiracy. And guess what? And I got to say this before we close, because this is really important. This administration squandered their opportunity already. Okay? And here's why. Last Friday is when early voting started in Virginia for the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general race. So let's recall what happened last year by an attorney general in New York, a district attorney in New York City, a district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia. What did they do, Jane? Did they do lawfare to the maximum against President Trump?
Yes.
I suggest they didn't. They were only starting to get warmed up. Do you think if they get back into power they'll escalate from there. Meaning more lawfare, more assassinations attempts, more successful assassinations, right? I think most people at this point would recognize that that's probably the likely path. What if I were to tell you that that's going to start in January of next year in Virginia? How? Because when the Democrat wins the Attorney General position in the Commonwealth of Virginia on November 4th of this year, he's sworn in January of 26 in a mere 3.5 months. Okay? And what if Abby Spanberger, an acolyte of John Brennan, becomes the governor?
Great.
And the Democrats then have a trifecta. House, Senate, Lieutenant Governor, Governor, and the Attorney General. That means they have unlimited political power to do whatever they want. And if there's no laws on the books for it, they'll change the laws to make it happen. Meaning, expect, and this is just I'm just giving my analysis here. If I were a Democrat, this is what I would do. And based on what they've already shown to have done. Trump's properties in Virginia, in Charlottesville, the winery, guess what? We're seizing that. Thank you. Oh, wait, doesn't President Trump have a property in Loudoun County, Trump National Golf Course? Guess what? We're seizing that. Wait, Tulsi Gabbard's doing some stuff like releasing all the criminality that we were involved in. She works in Virginia. Arrest her. Bring her in. For what? Doesn't matter. We have the power to do so. Wait, Pete Hegseth. He's trying to do some COVID accountability, and he's trying to expose Mark Milley for his CCP connections and treason, and for his, implementing the jab and his involvement in January 6th with Pelosi and the Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, at the time. We don't want Pete Hegseth to do that. We'll arrest him. Okay? Because he works in Virginia. Let's see who else we can go after. Wait, you know what? Everybody and anybody that works at the DOJ, whether it's Ed Martin, the Weaponization Task Force, Pam Bondi, you name it. Anyone trying to create accountability for the Democrats, if they live or work in Virginia, we're going to go after them. We'll do the arrest and we'll figure it out later. Because as Democrats, they know that the Republicans are going to investigate and then later decide whether or not to arrest. So, President Trump, Mr. Warrington, Mr. Bondi, Miss Bondi, Mr. Patel, Mr. Bongino, and Mr. Andrew Bailey, guess what? They are coming for you in a way that you've never seen before in your life, to include facilitating and allowing more Charlie Kirk style actions against you, and then never finding the culprit. Because guess what? They have the discretionary authority to investigate or not, or come up with whatever they want to tell you the narrative is. Meanwhile, the individuals that did it, they roam freely, just like Jim Comey, just like John Brennan. Why? Because you're too beta cuck cowards to do anything against them. So when they do that to you, you deserved it. So expect that in January.
Not good. Not good.
And I'll just watch and report. And if they do it to me, we'll see how that plays out.
You're more
good luck to them.
Yeah, you're more experienced now at navigating when they do that to you.
But I always have a counter strategy. But I won't do the counter strategy until in the event that they win and take over in January.
Mr. Secretary, we can only hope for the retribution. Thanks,
With
Ivan.
that,
you're amazing.
Thank you for the platform. I appreciate you.
Oh my God, anytime. Open invitation. I'm always beating that on your top of your head. Anytime. You got,
all right, let's get motivated, man.
You better believe it. Where can people, can are you writing about this stuff? Are you website, Substack? Tell me.
My next Substack is going to be essentially the guide of what I would, if I were chairing Loudermilk Subcommittee, I'm going to lay out exactly what it should look like and what the end state and what should ultimately result in
I love
by
that.
December of next year.
I love that. Okay, so Substack is a deep state marauder?
It's ivanraiklin.substack.com.
Okay.
And then my daily musings are on X,
Okay, yeah.
Telegram, somewhat.
I like that.
I'm primarily on X right now. And then if they start censoring, then I'll go back to Telegram and others.
There are a couple of books in your life, to be written. I don't know if anybody else has ever suggested it or you've thought of it, but
yeah, I should probably write a few.
Or even make one book a compendium of some of the incredible things you've written on the Substack.
Okay.
Just an idea.
More homework.
You could hire somebody to put your compendium together.
All right. I got to go play dad.
Thanks so much, Ivan, for being here. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.